Hello, everyone. We are back here on the LFC Transfer Room once again for one of the daily 7:30 p.m. streams. Thank you so much for joining in. I'm joined today by Paul and Carter. My name is Lou, and today it's been a steady day. It's been a slow day. We're still, he's on milk cartons at this point. There's still been no sight of Onslaught. There's been no media presentation. There's been no interview. We can only summarize that he's either been kidnapped and this is a bit of a taken situation, or he is just on holiday. His season's just ended and there's still a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. Now, that doesn't mean it's been quiet. If anything, the past couple of hours have been anything but. It's been one of the busy periods. A lot of journalists coming out and speaking on a lot of things regarding Liverpool Football Club, and we're going to get into them today with Paul and Carter. And just before we do that, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you're watching on Twitter, which I know a lot of you are, you need to head over to the YouTube channel to get your comments in. And while you're over there, just make sure to hit subscribe. Start off with you, Paul. How are you doing? You're good?
I'm doing well. Not necessarily my favorite time of the year with no football, and I don't consider international friendlies real football. The window is still about 10 days or so before it's open, but still a lot going on, so I'm ready to talk about it, but I'm doing okay. How about you?
You know what? think I am one of the few Liverpool fans who is I love the Euros, I love the internationals, I love watching England play, albeit with that sort of Southgate in mind that we are going to play boring football. But I'm good. I'm looking forward to the Euros. All happy. Just waiting for the slot news, some slot announcements, some interview, something. Jamie Hughes says aliens, Lou, aliens. It might be, to be fair, taking them back. This could be very much one of those sort of films where everyone's been taken and replaced by bald men. It could be some sort of invasion. We don't know. Carter, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm enjoying my last week as unemployed and not a student. So I'm just letting that sit in and just relaxing and stuff. So that's good. And I'm kind of with you in the sense of I actually enjoy the Euros not for England. Like I like to watch the other teams, and it's like guys who like, and maybe it was the last World Cup of the Euros. It's like Serge Milinkovic-Savic. I'd never seen him play a game.
Yeah.
And then it's players like that who are like almost myths who you just hear about. Oh, this guy's really good. This guy's really good, and you actually get to see them play. So that's something I really enjoy.
Every tournament, there's a player who like you say you've never heard of. Like it was James Rodriguez in 2014, and suddenly it's like, oh my god, look at this amazing player. I mean, just before we get into the Liverpool thing, how are you feeling confident going into the Euros?
I'm feeling all right. I think there's a chance. I think the only thing is I don't think he's taken I think he might have taken the best players. I don't think he's taken the best team. Like I feel like it's going to get to the point where it will just be too flat. There won't be enough pace. I know me and Paul are huge Marcus Rashford fans, and we both thought that he should have gone.
Good one.
Yeah, I know. Just me. I thought he should have gone because it's like we've had loads of good players. Firmino, Minamino. And maybe not Minamino's not great, but sometimes you need a bit of pace, and I think that's what England are going to lack. So I think he's taking good players. I just don't think he's taking the right route.
To be fair, no, I agree. There are a few players in that squad that I do look at and think, like, even Jadon Sancho. I know he's not been fantastic, but there's an option there. But that's by the by. We won't get into England because I don't want to turn off everyone from watching the video. We are going to get into Liverpool. Jamie Hughes coming in for question, which I have got it. I'm gonna save it. We'll save that for a little bit later on because there's a lot to discuss. Starting off with, I suppose, the big one, and that is, well, we all know Fabrizio Romano. Let's face it, he's like God to us every single day. That name pops up. Here we go, and you get all excited, especially when it's something around your club. And today he has confirmed that we do have an interest in Inacio, the current Sporting Lisbon defender. He's been linked with us for what feels like a decade, but it's only been about a year in actuality. We are desperate for a centre back. Paul, I've heard you mention his name a good few times, as everyone has. I mean, there's always the rumours of we're interested, we want this player, we want that player, but does it feel like there's a lot more validity now that Fabrizio Romano himself has confirmed that we are interested in him?
Not really. I mean, I saw the noise around that tweet, and then I went and watched the video. I mean, I don't subscribe to Fab on YouTube because I can't stand the guy.
Mm.
But nevertheless, I went and watched that video to see what he had to say. And he just briefly said that we, as well as Man United, are interested, which is really nothing new. I guess Fab has to pay his bills, so he's trying to generate some content, clickbait. But I'm not really surprised. I mean, he has been linked with us for quite a while, as you said. I'm not sure that we're going to go for him primarily because I don't think Liverpool is going to pay 60 million euros, which is his release clause. Because in my mind, if you're going to be paying that kind of money, you are bringing in somebody to start right away. And with Virg marooned at that left-sided centre back, and I don't anticipate Virg moving to the right side if he should get a left footer as a permanent position for Virg. So in my mind, I think we're looking for a left footer who is not necessarily going to be a starter, who's going to sit on the bench, come on and give Virg a break here or there, or somebody who's going to spend a bunch of time at playing left back. So I just don't see Inacio coming to Liverpool for that role right now, with Verge expected to be here for, in my guess, another 2-3 years, and the kind of money that it will demand for that transfer. So, and this is just my guess. You know, I've been following football for quite a while, so I'm just giving an opinion here. I think we are going to sign a more low-profile left-footed centre-back, somebody probably younger, somebody who don't necessarily will demand a start in the best 11 from day one, and somebody who we can look, more long term. But I mean, if Inacio is signed, I mean, I wouldn't be upset. Don't get me wrong. Just that I am not convinced that he's the kind of guy that we're going for. Primarily because, as I said, I don't anticipate to see Verge moving from his position, and I also don't see the point of bringing in a left-sided centre back to play right centre back. Doesn't make sense. So I just wait and see.
So when you're saying like a young player who we can sort of bring through the squad, like a Lenny Yoro kind of player from Lille, like the 20-year-old kind of, he can compete long term because he is quite a young player, that kind of thing.
Not necessarily Lenny. First of all, Lenny's going to cost as much as Inacio in terms of a transfer fee. So again, if you're going to be spending that kind of money, you're looking for a starter. Lenny is right-footed, so and the noise around his camp is that he's looking for a club that he's going to be, be impactful, in other words, be a starter. So we might sign somebody who we probably don't know much about yet. Might be a surprise. But I just don't see us signing the Pacho or the Inacio or the Hincapié. I just don't think we're going to sign any of those high-profile left-footers right now. Primarily because, as I said, we're not going to play a back three. And I do not see Verge moving from the left-sided centre-back that he has been playing for his entire Liverpool career. Even though he plays, I think, centre in a back three for his country. But we don't play a back three, so I don't expect to see Verge moving over to accommodate a left footer. So I just don't see us going for an expensive 60, 70 million left footer unless that guy is going to do a bunch of time playing left back. Kind of like the Nathan Ake role at City or the Guardiola role at City.
Well, we're going to get into sales a bit later on because there are a lot of players that are linked with moves away from us. But Carter, by the way, Dan's here, everyone. Hi, Dan.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
Hello. But Carter, obviously, I want to get your thoughts on Inacio as a player, but we also need to consider that what Paul's saying could be true, but we also need to consider the fact that, players come, but players go as well. Like Konate is linked to PSG, even though he sort of laughed it off. There's reports of Joe Gomez possibly going off to Saudi today. Joel Matip's leaving. Van Dijk's not getting any younger. So while I can see the validity in what Paul's saying, there is also that world of we need to prepare for the future. We need to prepare for these players to go, as Richard Hughes has said himself, which we're also going to get onto later. So while there's no room right now, is there a world in which a month down the line, there's 2 or 3 spaces available, and then it makes sense for Inacio to be brought in for big money?
I think Inacio, the idea of him I like, but I spoke to one person who he sort of watches a lot of Sporting Lisbon. He's a Sporting Lisbon fan. He does some things very well, but he's kind of said to me, and I've from the clips I've seen, I think defensively, although the numbers can look good, I do think he's a bit of a red flag. This feels for me like Arsenal when Arsene Wenger moved away from having guys like Vieira and like the big centre halves, and you started having these smaller, more technical players filling the
Yeah,
team.
yeah.
It feels like everyone else's team is getting more like solid and wider and bigger, and we're now getting smaller and more technical. Like we're moving in the opposite direction. And for me, I am slightly worried about that. I know he's a different foot, but I would maybe like prefer Diamande from Sporting Lisbon. I think he's way younger. I think he's one that could be more like physically. You look at him and think he's a Liverpool centre half. Like I do think
Yeah.
Inacio gives me very much like Laporte vibes, and I always think when we played City, if Salah was running at Laporte, I was very confident, and that's not the type of player I feel like we should be signing because we want to try and improve defensively, and we don't want to sign guys who people are looking at and it's like, I can go at this player, I can score against them. So I do think it is very difficult. And I agree with Paul, but I almost feel like it will be someone, maybe not like out of the complete blue, but it might be someone like Gakpo, who's been linked to other clubs, who's like a very exciting player, and just 2 days later we sign him. Like I think for me, probably left-footed, I'd like to maybe go for like Lekeba at Red Bull Leipzig. Like I think he's very exciting. I think he's quite mobile. He's big. He's very good on the ball. I think that's the type of I'd rather him than Inacio.
I mean, I to be fair, I sort of do back up what you're saying. So I'm not a big stats person. I think they can be very misleading. But Inacio this season per 90 minutes, he's averaging 1.74 tackles, which is the top 76% in Europe. However, he only gets 0.91 interceptions, 1.05 blocks, 2.32 clearances. He's in like a very low percentile. But passing wise, he's got the most progressive carries of any centre back in the league, the most progressive passes of any player in the league. He actually averages 0.4 successful take-ons per 90, which for a centre back is ridiculous. And Dan, I mean, to get you into this, like Arne Slot, from what we understand, is he wants to control play. He wants to dictate tempo of matches. He wants ball playing defenders. Surely Inacio then makes sense if we're looking at it from that perspective when you've got other players around him, like Van Dijk, like Canate, like Robertson, who can do the dirty work defensively and let Inacio sort of offer his skill set going forward, which is what he seems to be doing now for Sporting.
Yeah, absolutely. The skill set that he presents clearly looks to somebody who's a little bit more like a Robertson, more than a centre back, to be more than anything. We had this in the chat before. His defensive numbers aren't exceptional, but that probably leans into the fact that that really isn't his role at Sporting. His role is to do less of, as you've said, the dirty work, which other players will do for him, like a Diamande, whose numbers look much higher, and a Sebastian Coates, ex-Liverpool player there, shout out for him. It actually shocked me that he was still playing football, to be totally honest with you.
Thank you for the QPR goal, by the way, Coates.
That's it, absolute wonder goal. He's scored an absolute cracker, but other than that, to be honest with you, it was pretty unmemorable. But he's gone out there and he's done a brilliant job. If what Fabrizio Romano has said is that the release clause is £51 million, that's apparently the number that's been quoted. If it's £51 million, it doesn't really seem like a very big risk in today's market. We've just mentioned Diamande, which is great, but it's a left-footed centre-back, which is what we need. And unfortunately, like almost everything in football, anyone who's any good with a left foot normally comes at a premium. So it really just depends. It depends on what we want to do as well with our back line. There's a lot of talk about us playing a back three, but that's not going to happen under Arne Slot. He's never played a back three, so we're not going to do that. Virgil van Dijk's going to be solidly set within the team. Perhaps there's a world potentially where if we did, is that perhaps he could be converted. He's young enough to be converted to being a left back more so than being a left centre back. And it's a possibility that he's clearly shown the ability to do that already with the way that he plays at Sporting Lisbon. Perhaps he can be developed further and actually go the whole hog and become a left back. So we'll have to see. I mean, it's exciting and it's good to be linked with players of their standing, to be totally honest with you, because things are going to be hotting up. And we have looked at Inacio for a little while, and unfortunately, Virgil van Dijk isn't getting any younger. So the quicker we start looking at trying to, again, hard to say, replace Virgil van Dijk, if it's even possible, we have to in some way start to put the building blocks in place, because sadly, great teams don't last forever and great players don't last forever either. So if the groundwork's going in, I've said this before, the signings are coming from above Arne Slot. They're not his. He is not giving the go ahead. He will be given an opinion. He will be given a voice within the world. But for me, it's going to be Richard Hughes and ultimately Michael Edwards and their laptop saying who is the person that we think will fit the best within our system. And we have to trust them, because we haven't far gone wrong with them in the past. And there's probably more hits than there is misses. But pressure's on now, because there's nowhere left to hide. There's no one to say that you should Klopp signings anymore.
Well, and Paul, you can weigh in on this as well, and anyone, Dan or Carter, feel free to jump in. But like right now, we should actually look at this transfer window and everything that's going on behind the scenes. We're actually in a better place than we have been the past 2 seasons, when like Jörg Schmadtke was there, when we didn't know what the infrastructure was. Klopp was having a bit more of an impact on signings, whereas now we've got Michael Edwards, Julian Ward, Richard Hughes. Hughes himself came out today and said that they're looking to upgrade in certain areas of the pitch and develop players. So if Inacio is a name that's being touted and that's a player that the club are after, now more than ever should be a point where we trust their decision making, especially given the track record that like the likes of Edwards and Ward have had in the past. Inacio, like you said, £51 million is nothing. It's pennies. If Kylian Mbappe is getting £86 million as a signing on bonus, £51 million for a 22-year-old centre back, someone who's very talented with the ball, would fit on slot system as well, seems like a no-brainer. But I mean, Paul, after everything you've heard, say Inacio, you're not too sure if it would happen. You mentioned a few defenders before that you could possibly see. Who does go? Because we've heard, obviously Matip's gone, which is devastating, but Konate linked. Joe Gomez is apparently linked with a move to Saudi Arabia. I mean, can you really see that happening, or any other defender leaving the club this summer?
Well, let's go back to the Inacio for a quick bit. This is how Inacio would be perfect fit. If Arne Slot decided to continue with Trent at right back and have him invert into midfield, then Inacio would probably work, because then we would slot him in as a left back instead of Robbo, right? So you would still have Verge in his position as left centre back. And when we are in possession and Trent is in midfield, then Inacio being the left back in that scenario would stay back a little bit. So basically it would be like a back three with a double pivot in possession, if you know what I mean. So he would be perfect for that scenario. Just that I just don't see him coming in right now to take over as left centre back, because Verge is going nowhere. As it relates to the other transfers, I love Joe Gomez, to be honest. I really love Joe Gomez, but at the same time, if he leaves and we upgrade, I would not be too upset. They have been talk of this guy from Feyenoord. I don't think it may happen, but I think his name is Gertruda or whatever his name is.
Gertruda.
He strikes me as a younger version of Joe Gomez, and probably a little bit more talented version of Joe Gomez, because based on what we have heard, he can play left back, right back, centre back, and a little bit of number 6. So if it's a case where we're going to upgrade with a guy like that, not necessarily him, but a player like that, then it kind of makes sense, because Gomez is decent, but Gomez is not good enough to make our best 11 in any scenario. So if that's the case, then if you have to upgrade, then he would be the perfect or the kind of player that you would like to move on. And especially to Gomez is 27, got up maybe 28. Well, he's 27 now. I think just turned 27 a month or so ago. So if he can go to Saudi Arabia, that's if he wants to go and make a big payday because he's not getting any younger. I wouldn't hold it against the guy. But other than that, I'm kind of worried about Ebo because of his injury record. But if Ebo can stay fit and we have Kwanzaa, I think we are pretty solid at red centre back. We just need a young guy who can come in and give us some cover. But I think we'll be spending a lot of money as well because Michael Edwards, this is his team now. This is his squad right now. And we know that we have money, right? Because we have not yet spent the Caicedo £115 million. So we know that we have money. And he would not want the club to step back because he would be the one that's getting the blame. So I think we're going to be very busy in the transfer window. There are going to be 2 or 3 signings. And I expect there are going to be a couple of departures too. If you ask me to guess, I'm going to say Gomez leaves and probably a Curtis Jones. But that's just a guess.
I mean, I wouldn't want Gomez to go, but it's 30 million for Gomez. Gomez is worth at least 50 as far as I'm concerned. He's on a long-term deal. He's one of the most versatile defenders the league's got at the moment. I think Gomez 50 million minimum. Like it in today's market. I don't know.
But
Gomez
Lou,
is a player I don't want to see go.
But Lou, versatile is one thing, yes. But if you're versatile at 3 or 4 stuff, but you're not really very good at any single one.
Jack of all trades, but a master of none kind of thing.
And that's Joe Gomez for me.
Well, and part of this one can go towards you, because, Paul, you're saying that, but I'd argue there were points earlier this season where when Robertson was out of the team and Tsimikas was out of the team, Gomez actually stepped up and performed better at left back than them at points. I'd say there's moments in the past where, as a centre-back, he's been... when him and Van Dijk, well, it was a good few years ago now, were a centre-back partnership back in the 1920 campaign, they were unstoppable. So I think Gomez has talent and he's good enough to get into pretty much nearly every Premier League team, barring maybe Arsenal or City. If he went somewhere like a Villa, if he went somewhere like Crystal Palace or something like that level, I think he'd excel and he'd absolutely take off. I mean,
he'd be a first choice. He'd be a first choice for, if they lost Romero at Spurs, he'd be a first choice for them. He'd absolutely be a first
100%. 100%.
Van der Ben's not going to last all season because he's clearly shown that he's pacey, but unfortunately, he suffers from the fact that his legs are going to suffer for it.
Yeah.
Joe Gomez, as you just said, Lou, I was just thinking that we can't replace Joe Gomez, who costs us literally next to nothing, with a player who's going to cost us 20-odd million pounds to be a utility man. Gomez is, if we're going to upgrade this team, we need to be looking at that first 11, and whoever's in that first 11 in your mind, you need to look at each of those players and say to yourself, who are we going to bring in who's here to replace them? If you know what I mean. Like, if we want to get better, we need to improve the players that we already have. And, output wise, we have to first of all look at Luis Diaz. Luis Diaz, I think, works brilliantly. I think he's a great player. However, the numbers don't stack up. He doesn't do enough in the business end of the game. Diogo Jota is a player who arguably could start for this team. Absolutely. His problem is he's never here. He's always injured. He does great bits for a short period of time, and then he's gone. It doesn't help us, and we need to be a little bit more ruthless, I think. I think we're very attached to players, aren't we? I think there's no club in the world who loves its players more and doesn't want to badmouth even the ones, who have done us dirty, like your Michael Owens. We just stop talking about them. That's kind of what happens, in all honesty. But it's just, for us, we've got to look at that team and we need to find ourselves, who do we need to improve? And if we're playing as a central defensive midfielder, you're probably talking, it's got to be Endo. Endo's got to be replaced. Like, he is the player who is the least good, for want of a better word, really. Yeah. I think he did a brilliant job in certain games, but at times he also showed why he's a lad who played at Stuttgart, and he never really made it at a big club. But that's the truth of it, because He just isn't quite there. I think he's a great player. I think he'll finish his career more than likely with us, to be totally honest. But someone like Inacio coming in, I think he can be developed. I honestly think he can be developed into something else. I think he's young enough that he's not like, right, he's here to replace Virgil van Dijk. There's no reason he couldn't be here to, in inverted commas, replace Andy Robertson, because he is unfortunately coming to the end of his time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. Like, Carter, what do you think, like, of this squad, this crop of players? You know, Dan mentioned Diaz there, who's someone who I've been, yeah, he could go, but I also think at the same time, in this slot system with inverted wingers, he could do very good. I don't think we're going to see a lot of sales until towards the end of the window-ish, because I think Slot's going to want to see how they get on and who fits the system. I mean, Carter, is there anyone in this team that you're looking at right now and thinking, we need to get money for Inacio, as an example? Who do we sell to make the funds for that?
I think for me, the way so I'll do centre half kind of first. There's things I like about Quansah. There's things I don't like. I do think, and I'm not hating on him, I do think he has been a bit massively overrated. I think there's things that he still needs to massively improve upon. I think physically, I know he's big. I know he has good dual numbers. When I watch, I do think, he's a bit slow turning. I just don't think he's the most agile, quick start. I think he's a bit like a lorry sometimes when and I think he can improve that. And then I look at Gomez now, and I do agree. I think versatile, but he's not good enough to start. I think I would have started him at left back over Robbo all season, but that's because he can actually do what we needed the left back to do. No one else could do it. If we'd have just had an actual left-footed centre back, like even if we had Dan Burn, if we had just trying to think of Pau Torres is very good on the ball actually, but if we just had someone who was left-footed to play there, they probably would have looked better than Gomez, because I think once he lost that spark, he's improved, but he's never got back to that player he used to be. And I think he's the one where you can get way more money than he's worth. Like if I was West Ham, I wouldn't spend more than £25 million on Joe Gomez. But if Saudi come in with 50, we have to take it, because we almost cover a coming in fee with the going. I just don't think he's that good. Would he start for Brentford? Probably not. Like there's things I like about Gomez, and I do think he's really useful. But I think Edwards is going to look at some players like Tsimikas and Robertson. You're not going to get that much money for them. But Gomez almost covers an incoming player. So I do think, and I don't agree with who Paul said, because I would personally keep Curtis Jones because I think he's so useful. There's certain positions, Diaz, one of the midfielders, if we sell them for a significant fee, we can bring one of Edwards' big targets in. So I think there might be players that we go, why isn't Tsimikas being sold? Why isn't Adrian left? And we're going to be selling sort of players that are in between good enough and are all right, because their value is going to be, we'll be able to sell them for more than they're worth. So I think guys like that will be the ones on the way out. Jota, Joe Gomez, maybe Endo if we got a big enough offer, but I don't think we will. And Bajcetic has only played, 20 minutes of football. So you can't really rely on him to be our sixth for next season.
I think Stefan Bajcetic, we just need to forget about next season. I think he's just going to be a bonus player. You know, he's going to have his minutes managed. He's going to have his time managed within the team. We can't. He's had a year out. He's grown about 5 inches. You know, he's found himself. He's been on a gap year. He's done whatever he's done for the last 12 months, you know, and then he's come back. He obviously looks like a bigger lad now. And that's great. That's great for us. But he's just going to need to be managed properly. We just need to manage him. And if we get him a few games here, substitute appearance there, I'll be happy with that, to be honest. But I honestly feel now, looking more and more at it, we probably need as a first choice player to come in to improve this team immediately would be a central defensive midfielder. The problem is, are they out there? If that makes sense. Like, we want to replace Fabinho, and do they exist? Does that person exist right now?
And number 6 is the most. I've made this point many times in this channel. I sound like a broken record whenever I do. You look at any Premier League winning team, and there is a number 6. There is a core number 6. Be it Vieira, be it Makelele, Fernandinho, Rodri, Fabinho, you know, Kante. The list goes on. It's such a key position, and I agree with what Carter's saying in that Endo. Oh no, sorry, what you were saying, Dan. Endo is good, but Endo can be improved upon. And I think the fact that, while he has had a good season, we could have got better. We just missed out on our targets. Obviously, in the end, it went the way it did, and it actually went quite well. But getting a number 6 going into this summer or going into this next season is vital for how next season goes, because Arne Slot wants a double pivot. Endo, for me, is not the most mobile player. That's what Slot wants in his midfielders. He's going to want someone like Bajcetic, who next year, he's not going to suddenly take off and play phenomenally. If anything, I actually expect him to go on loan for half the season or for the season. I think he needs to get his game time up. He's, like you said, it's not like he's had an injury and he's come back. He's grown. He's had abductor problems. He's been growing into his body. We don't know how he's going to get on. So maybe do the Tyler Morton route of loaning him out. Maybe do the Carvalho route. It's going to take time for him to come back in. And while we're on that topic, I mean, Paul, what do you make? Because we've spoken about centre-backs, spoken about midfielders, but Bajcetic, what is the best course of action to do with him next season?
Well, I believe the club going into this past season saw Badge as the long-term 6. So Endo was brought in to sort of give us buy time for him to develop, etc. But I don't think he hasn't played enough football this season for anybody to be sure that he's ready. So if he turns out to be helpful in that position this season, it will be a big bonus. But I don't think we can bank on that. So we obviously need a number 6 if we want to win something this upcoming season, because McAllister is not the 6 that we need. Yes, he can do a job there, but we want somebody who can actually perform, not just to do a job. Who is out there? That's a big question, especially if you want to see if Stefan can be that person over time. I know we have spoken a lot about Paulina from Fulham, and yes, I know he's getting a little bit older, but when I think about it, he's older. Yes, I think he's 28-ish, but he would be much cheaper than what he was a year, 18 months ago. And when you look at Bayer Leverkusen, for example, Bayer Leverkusen has won everything this year except the last one game, which was the final of the Europa League. And one of the most impactful signing they did this past offseason was the guy from Arsenal, Granit Xhaka. And he's like 30 or 31, right? So you wouldn't buy Paulina as a long-term 6. But if you believe that Stefan will be the long-term 6 in another 12 to 18 months, 2 years, and you can get, say, Paulina for 30 million right now to win now, and he can give you 3 or 4 solid years, and you can sell him back again for even say 10 million in 3 years' time. It might be worth it, primarily because there is really no certain number 6 out there that you're going to pay big money for. It's probably not worth the risk. And Paulina also have a lot of Premier League experience. So I'm just sad you have to think out of the box, because there's a lot of names being branded around, but there's none of them that you can say this is the answer. We tried with Caicedo. Of course, we know how that worked out. So I think we should probably look at something like that, maybe a 3-4 year deal, a short-term solution like somebody like that, and just forget about the age.
I can tell you one short-term solution that we could have. If you're not bothered about the age, there is a fly in my face. If you're not bothered about the age, if you're not bothered about all that sort of thing, you've already touched on the league, you've already touched on the position and the profile. Joshua Kimmich is available now. It divides opinion. I like Kimmich. I think he's a very good player at what he does in the Bundesliga. He's obviously a legend for them. Can play right back, can play CDM. We are in a world where people want Trent to move to midfield. And then you've got Conor Bradley. So then you need more depth at right back. What about a player who can play as a number 6, who can be a brick wall in midfield, who then, if you do want to move Trent to midfield, Kimmich can go right back as an option. Dan, what do you make of the Kimmich news? I mean, I'm not saying do it, but there's worse options, surely.
There is, but it reminds me more of a Rafa Benitez signing than it reminds me of a current race signing, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
It's we as a club and as an ethos and under the FSG system, they don't sign stopgaps. You know, they just don't sign these players who fit for 2 or 3 years. They're very set on.
Endo, that's what Endo is.
No, you see, now I actually think Endo was systemic of having George Schmatka in, who was a director of football who was here on a temporary contract and whose job was basically to do the phone calls for Jurgen Klopp. Let's get it straight, because I mean it's true, because he was in his Villa and IB, for no one knew what he was doing. You know, he was just kind of paying release clauses and stuff left, right, and centre, and it was not really like he was out there doing this groundbreaking business and getting these great, you know, situations in place. We obviously heard about the Alexis McAllister deal through the grapevine from somewhere, but that was because his dad was very clever at ensuring that there was something in there for his son when he signed the new deal at Brighton, so he could get out, and that's what he did. I don't know. I mean, Kimmich just doesn't look like a player. I mean, I think he's a good player. I think he is. But if you want me to be honest, you want my honest opinion, I just can't see something like that happening for us. I just can't see us ever signing players who are sort of over a certain age profile. And as much as I think he would do a job for us, my concern would be, what kind of wages do you think that he would be demanding? Right. They're going to be expensive. And I don't know. I think we've seen other clubs who've bought players who are getting on in their years and they've come on quite big contracts and it's not quite worked out for them. So, yeah, I don't see it happening. Just a little rewind to the Bajcetic situation. We have to remember he is only 19. There's probably about 4 more years before we see the actual player he really is. I know that you have your Jude Bellinghams and you have your players who hit there at 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Let's be honest, the very best players, he's probably a couple of years away. So there is no rush on him yet. There's no rush on him having to be our first choice. I'm quite happy spending the next 18 months to 2 years developing him and not wearing him into the ground too soon.
So that's why Paulina would be the perfect signing. Paulina is a year younger than Kimmich. Joshua is also earning Salah's money at €375 a week. We're not going to pay that.
But age is not. I think in football, age can be very misleading. That's very much like a FIFA sort of. They're over a certain age, we must get rid of them. I'd say Kimmich, that 1 year older, is more talented than Paulina is at what we would require. But I do agree that the wage that he would do, so he's on 288,000 at the moment at Bayern Munich, which is a lot. And Kimmich could potentially go on a free. So, you know, not to mention as well, if we did get Paulina, that's what. He's just recently signed a contract, so it'd be like 45 million. And then he's not going to be on low wages either. So Kimmich financially makes probably a bit more sense. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, Carter, what do you make of it? Like, what? I'm trying to think how to describe it, because I'm not saying we should get Kimmich, but there is a role there. There is something that he could contribute to this team. And in a time as well where, you know, the old guard could be leaving sooner rather than later. Van Dijk's only got a year left on his contract. Salah's only got a year left on his contract. The old guard is going. You're going to be left with this young team, and we don't want to end up in a situation like Chelsea. So you need these experienced players to help develop them. Like, is there a role for Kimmich in this team? Maybe like a James Milner kind of role?
I think there's two reasons why he wouldn't work. I think one is Trent Alexander-Arnold, because I just think he's probably going to be right back. You'll move Trent around. And I think the second issue is, I think, Alexis McAllister. I personally don't think those two guys could work together. I think you're asking two guys who struggle to cover a lot of space. Like, that's for me, and people might disagree with me. I think we've got two guys who can be superstar midfielders, and that's Bajcetic and Szoboszlai. I think when I look at Bajcetic, I see a bit of Frankie de Jong. I see someone long legs, can get about, progress the ball, tackle, defend, do everything. And I do think if he was fit, I think the issue with him is going to be that he's going to be knocking on the door to play. is he's going to be in training. I think he's going to impress. I think he's going to be what Slot wants. Because I still look at Gravenberch. I think there's a few things he needs to work out. I think Jones is just very, very solid. But I think it's just with the build of the squad we currently have, it's very difficult to like fit everyone in. Like I think that's the big thing with Endo and McAllister is I don't think they work. I think if you had Endo and Jones and Soboslai, you kind of have enough protection for him. But I think, and I know McAllister's good tackle things, he doesn't get about the pitch that quickly. Like when you're in transition, you don't want Endo and McAllister. So I do think six is a need. And I agree with people saying that we won't sign older players. But I think FSG signed Milner, no? I know it was for free, but they have occasionally dipped and signed someone slightly older. So maybe they would look and just say there is actually no alternative that we want to sign off on. Like Yusuf Fofana, they might look and go, we don't really want him. They might look at Edison, who's not really a 6, and go, we don't want him. So I almost feel like they'll have their list and their list will slowly move down from 23 to 25, and it might creep into the sort of 27 to 28 bracket. They might have to sign in there because there's just no one available, especially no one who's not been injured for the last year or who has just been injured now. So I think they just have like no good options basically.
Well, yeah, go on.
Sorry, you actually said about the Milner one because I've actually been looking through transfer market as players who are available on a free, and unfortunately, the list is very, very small. There isn't. Well, there is. I just don't think they happen as often anymore. Yet that you won't see. I don't think we'll ever see a player of James Milner's quality ever just be leaving on a free, especially as a bilateral move within the Premier League. I just don't think we'll see situations like that occurring when players of such levels of experience and such levels of quality that Milner possessed will happen. And I think that, as Carter rightfully said, is that FSG have done this before, but I think it's more based on a cost to value basis. So how much do they cost? Free, wages be high, but the value that player brings in, will outweigh based on the statistics. So I think they'll look at that and go, he's a free, he might be X age, he might be a bit older, but actually what he'll bring in will statistically should outweigh what he's going to cost the club and potentially his age situations and stuff like that. There's just one comment here I just wanted to just think just while it was on and I saw it. It was this, and why are you constantly talking about old players? Ugarte is 23 and Varela is 22. Just going back on it, Jason, I don't know if you watched it before. What I said before was, when we're talking about buying a central defensive midfielder, we need to replace Fabinho. Are either of these guys, are you absolutely certain that these fellas right here are going to be that level? Because what happens is if they're not that level and we're not sure that they're ever going to reach those levels, we're now going to be stuck with a player who's going to cost us an awful lot of money and might be difficult for us to then move on at a later date. And then that affects our plans going down further down the road. So sometimes it's just better to hold your horses and just stick with what you've got rather than hitting and ended up with 22.
I think, to be fair as well, Michael Edwards and Julian Ward they've earned the right to do what they want, kind of thing as well. Like it's easy for us as keyboard warriors to sit here and go, I wouldn't get this player because he's this age and the stats say this, but these people have. Their life revolves around this. Their entire livelihood revolves around this. If Julian Ward and Michael Edwards and Richard Hughes and FSG are coming out and saying that this is the player we want for this role, absolutely fine by me. Because in the past, you could, during Klopp's tenure, definitely, I know he papered over a lot of the cracks, but you can't think of many players that we've bought in that era where you thought, what's the point? And they've actually turned out poor. So if the club say, look, we want Kimmich, fine, I will trust as a reason. Everyone and their mums was doubting Endo when we got him. Everyone was saying, why have we signed this player who got relegated or survived relegation with Stuttgart for this amount of money? He's this age. We don't want this. And now we're in a discussion of, who could play alongside him? Do we get rid of him? Do we not? So, it is a big thing. And on Ugarte as well, he's in PSG. They would charge us a fortune just to get him out of the team. Paul, Jamie says, but Edwards' model is younger player /investment. It's true. It is absolutely true. But And Paul, I want to get your thoughts on this. We're coming into a new era now. Arnslot's coming in. Maybe he wants a different sort of profile to fit in his squad. I know the higher ups will make the decisions, but he's going to have some sort of influence on it. So what do you think? Do you think we just stick with the sort of the young players investment model, or should we maybe start looking at we need people who are going to come in and sort of hit the ground running kind of thing? It's a bit of a vague question, but
Yeah, but the thing is, what do we consider young? Where is the cutoff point? Because we're not Chelsea. We're just going to sign 18, 19, 21-year-old players and put them on 8-year contracts. Because whilst we're looking to the future, so we're not going to sign a ton of old fellas, we also need to win now, right? So to me, anybody that is in mid-20s, low to mid-20s, if they are good enough, we will sign them. So I don't think we're just going to be looking at 18, 19, 20-year-olds. Of course, if there's a good prospect, because we have a bunch of young players already in our midfield. So we are struggling to really find minutes for them. So anybody we're going to sign in the market now in that area has to be somebody that's experienced and ready to come and start right now. But because we need to win right now, we are past that stage where we just want to compete and develop players over the next 2-3 years. We need to win. And if you see my eyes moving, it's because I have the England game in the background, and I've noticed the number 6 for England is Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he's playing that deeper role right now, and I'm sure Onslaught is watching this game too. So is there a chance that Trent could be deployed in that deeper defensive midfield role? We keep on saying that he can't do it, he can't defend. Coaching, because Trent is a product of Klopp. So Trent plays how Klopp want him to play. Maybe Trent could be our answer in midfield at that deep defensive. What about Trent beside Endo in a 6-6? Could that work? Interesting to hear what you guys say about that.
I mean, I'll give you the free reign on that. I've got my thoughts. I'm sure Dan's got his. We can give ours after you.
I think Trent and Endo could work. I personally, my point of view is I'd rather have Trent a right back no matter what, because I'd rather have one of the midfielders on than Bradley. Not to bad Bradley, but I think Trent a right back allows you to have more good and top players in the team. But for me, my main thing is I could put maybe Trent as an 8. I don't know if that would work. I'd rather try him there. But for me, my biggest sort of conundrum for Slot is to free up Szoboszlai, because I think he's the one where you don't want him running hard yards all the time. You don't want him being shattered. There's no reason he should have had the most. I think after like the first 14 games, he had like most recoveries, most like returns, most turnovers caused, or something like that. And it's like, that's not how you use him. You don't ask Messi to go and press every single ball. I'm not saying he's Messi, but he's probably our most talented midfielder. And I think we just need to, for me, the 6, I don't want a flashy person. I just want someone who's confident on the ball, pass it, tackle, decent size, and can sort of free up Szoboszlai and Harvey Elliott.
I mean, your thoughts on the Paul equation? Like, what could we? I know we've discussed it already, kind of, but like, what is the dream sort of scenario in that midfield? Do we see Trent there? Like, who plays what position? What are you thinking?
As a 6-6, I'm almost convinced it's either going to be Trent or Alexis McAllister. Originally, I had in my mind that the two could play together, and actually, I don't think they can. I've looked at it more and thought, no, actually, we can't have two players who both want to be ball-playing progressive footballers. They'll get in each other's way. They'll both wanting to do the same thing over and over again. Like Carter's just said, I would be quite happy with somebody whose job is to be really good at just cutting out the ball, putting tackles in, and then passing it to somebody better than he is. If that makes sense, I really don't need to add all of the flashy bits and pieces. I don't need
I completely agree.
Yeah, I don't need the goals. I don't need this. I don't need the techers. It's just nonsense. I don't need
Cheek
all.
Corey is your guy then for balance.
Yeah, all I need to see from him is to be somebody who can do what Fabinho can do so well, which was to tackle, intercept, jockey the players to that they can't make progressive passes. Some of the things don't come up as a stat. It's the fact that it means that they pass backwards or they pass sideways, and that causes them to break up their attacks and stuff like that. When there was talk about players who were going to be 80, 90, 100 million pounds, what I'll say with those players is if we were going to pay that kind of money for a central defensive midfielder, they would have to be everything Fabinho was and more for that price. Does that make sense? They would have to have all of the things he ever did, at least to the same level, and then probably come up with assists and goals. And, I don't really think that's likely or even reasonable for us to kind of request. So we might need to just look at it and basically say, I need them to be a really serviceable player who's just really good at tackling, and that's it.
Yeah. No, I'm in complete agreement, and I've had people say it in the comments. I've had people talk to me about it. I like my number 6 to just be a brick Lazar Markovic house. Like, just you're there to get people off the ball. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to be the flashiest. I understand the whole people want their number 6 to be a bit more ball play, and they want it to be progressive in the modern system. Everything's got to be passed around all over the place. But you need those players that just show grit. Roy Keane was not the greatest player on the ball. He wasn't a technical wizard, but what he lacked in that, possibly, he made up for with heart. Sorry, it is a Man United, just for a second. But there's players out there that you do not need to be great on the ball. You do not need to be able to score long-distance goals. The fact that Fabinho could do it all is fine. But, and Endo is good at that. But there's better players than him at doing that. There is better players at just breaking up play than Endo is.
And he can't do that 30 games a season. Sorry. No. You will not see Endo do what Fabinho did 30 games a season. I won't expect someone to do it every single week because they can't. Not everyone's on their game every week. But if I want a Fabinho replacement, that's 30 games where they're dropping a 7.5, 8 out of 10 standard of game. And that's what we'll be asking for. Endo will not have the legs to do that. To be honest with him, he won't have the legs physically to do it. And unfortunately, I just don't think he has the qualities to do it either. I think he's capable of getting up for games. But when we played against Man City, he was fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant. But then there's also games that we could probably go back to and point at and go, actually, he's looking like a player we bought out of Stuttgart for 16 million quid, respectfully to him. And that's okay. That is okay. But like Paul said, or like I think Carter said, we've all said, if we want to be going on and winning things next season, that's a position we're going to have to get right. Do I have a particular name in mind? I don't know. But what I will trust is if I see the club is announcing X player and they play as a central defensive midfielder, I'll have full trust that they've done a lot of due diligence and that's the person they trust to get it done because they've done it before. So, I've got to trust them to do it again.
No, I agree. And Kevin says here, guys, any idea why LFC haven't announced slot with the whole interview, etc.? I think what people seem to not be thinking a great deal of, and I didn't myself until today, to be fair, is his season has just ended as well. He's having time off just because he's the manager now officially. There's a lot of stuff to do. He's moving from a different country. He's got family that are relocating. He's having to meet everyone behind the scenes. A lot of the players aren't even there. So there's probably a lot going on at the minute. I imagine it'll be up in the next few days, but it's a big thing. He's literally moving his whole life from one place to another. And he's, the backroom staff has changed. Maybe they want to be a bit more thorough with him. Maybe they just want to, go through everything before, like, doing the interviews and stuff. I don't know. But
he's got to find out who his new barber's going to be in Formby, doesn't he? He's got to know who's going to be doing his hairstyles for him going forward. It's a big issue for him. Also, as well, to be honest with you, I thought of this. There's also quite big news that's been released today in the world of football, isn't there? And it might just be that Liverpool want to be a little bit more. We don't want our thunder being stolen by the fact that there's a certain player being announced by a certain club over in Spain today.
Well, look, Mbappe to Madrid is just it. It is what Actually, that's a good point, Carter. I'm going to give you first crack on this, and then we'll do you, Paul, and then Dan. What do you make of the Mbappe to Real Madrid thing? Because we all thought he was coming to us. Let's be honest. We all thought it was going to happen at some point. But what do you make of it?
I completely understand why he's done it. Like, and that's why, in a sense of, like, if right now you go to Real Madrid, because Barcelona have been run so terribly, Man City are the alternative essentially, but Man City aren't a real club. No one cares when they win anything. I know we're all a bit salty about it, but it's like none of you lot, have you ever gone to work and seen a Man City fan at your place of work? Do you know what I mean? I've never had that sort of thing where I know one person who supported Man City. I knew one person he used to support Arsenal. So I never have that. So I don't care. And I think he looks at it and goes, if I win 5 Champions Leagues and 10 league titles for Man City, no one actually cares. Real Madrid is the only team that can safely match his ambition. Like, we're too much of a risk. As much as we think we're good, I think we're too much of a risk for him if he wants to be.
I think we're good. I know we're good. Let's get that right.
Yeah, steady.
Oh, God, sorry.
I just think if he came to us, he wants to be like above Neymar. He wants to be above R9. He wants to be above all these guys. Zidane. He probably can't safely do that at Liverpool, but he can do that at Madrid. So I think for him, it makes perfect sense. Maybe one day in the future, if we're a super team again and Edwards' computer just picks the best 10 players in the world, he might consider us. But I really doubt it. And to be honest, I hope he wins nothing. I hope they have a terrible season. I hope something happens, like not something bad, but like I hope they get found for like cheating or like doping or something. Like, I just hope they don't win anything.
Just put respectfully on the end of it. Just make sure you say respectfully.
Respectfully.
To be fair, Real Madrid is the biggest club in world football. Whether we like them or not, and for any player, you know, I don't see a young player in football right now who would turn down an opportunity to go to Real Madrid. You know, maybe Trent, but even that, I'm not even 100% sure, right? So what will be interesting to see going forward is how the manager can keep all of those players happy. Because now, if you assume that Vinny Jr., Mbappe will be starting, then what are you going to do with players like Hendrick, that young Brazilian wonder kid? We're going to do with Rodrigo, you know. So and Bellingham has to start, and he wants to play as that number 10. So it's going to be interesting to see if they sell somebody, but I don't know. It's getting boring now. You know, we just want to see somebody just knock them off the perch. It's just ridiculous, the talent that they have over there.
Madrid is like, they are just inevitable. I'm sorry, but that Dortmund final the other day was just every missed chance. You just knew what was going to happen. Like, it was just Dan. What did you make of the whole? We're just having a bit of a gab now for the last few minutes.
Yeah.
What did you make of the whole?
Do you know what? It's amazing. Like, it's amazing what being the original sports washing project can do for you in the future, doesn't it? When and that's the truth of it. Let's be honest with you, Real Madrid fans, and those of you who don't follow the rules. Just have a look at where Real Madrid got its history from in the 1950s, and you'll understand why they got them where they are now. And you know, that's the way it is. And you can't fault the fact the way that they're being run now. The way they're run now is impeccable. But the issue is, and I've said this in our chat as well, is everything's geared towards ensuring that Real Madrid are the most dominant team in world football. And that is because the league doesn't share its money equally, unlike here. We share our money equally. They have 3 times as much money as the team at the bottom of the league. It's unfortunate because, for me, the reason why we look at the Premier League and everyone goes, the Premier League's the best league in the world, is probably because there's competitiveness of it. No one tunes in and goes, I'm going to watch Real Madrid versus Elche. It just doesn't happen. No one's interested. The only games people are interested in watching is the El Clasico, but they seem to play El Clasico 5 or 6 times a year. I don't know. I mean, they've got Mbappe. They are set for they're set for another decade, aren't they? And unless there's some form of total implosion within the Real Madrid team, you know, I just don't see how it's just going to go wrong for them. That they've got everything they need. And you're talking about Rodrigo. You're talking about the players they have. Hendrick. I mean, Hendrick. Real Madrid have this amazing ability to have players who never seem to care about if they actually play. Like, they're just happy to be there. Like, in other clubs, they'll be like, well, I want to get on the game. I want to go and play. Going to look for a move. They want to go somewhere else. Where at Real Madrid, they can have absolutely world-class players like Camavinga, who for years never seem to get a game, because Toni Kroos or Modric is in the team and they've carried on, and they're still going now. And we can't do that as a club. I don't think there's many clubs in the world who can have absolutely world-class talent and play them sort of sporadically, and we'll have to see. But yeah, thankfully, I don't know any Real Madrid fans, so I can sleep easily, and my phone doesn't go off very often.
No,
would you guys pay 100 million for Rodrigo?
No.
I think Rodrigo's a good player, but say if we did have that money, it needs going elsewhere. Like, we do not need attackers. We do not need to be stressing about forward players. It's the back line and the number 6 that needs fixing. So, as good as Rodrigo is, I'm not spending 100 million on him. I'm sorry. I mean, yeah. So we're going to shoot off in a second. I've got a really quick one. And you know what, Paul? I'll give you a crack at this. And it's we've only got a minute or two, but James, would you rather have one of Inacio or Silva, or both Pacho and Hincapié for the same price? What are you thinking? You can send us off with the answer to this question.
Well, if it's the same price, I would take Inacio and Silva, because
no, it's
then
Inacio
we only get one of them.
We only get one.
Inacio or Silva. Well,
Or both.
Good one. I don't think we need both Pacho and Hincapié. I really don't. So I probably would take Silva, even though you could make the argument that if you take Inacio, then you would have him play a lot of left back and Robbo on the bench. And then that is if, as I said earlier, if Trent is going to be inverting, then that would be a perfect scenario. But I think I don't think he's as talented defensively as Silva. So even though Silva, I think, is right-footed, but is he right-footed, right, Carter? Silva? He's right-footed?
No idea, to be honest, with this guy.
But I guess because I am not in the Inacio camp as deep as some of you lads on here, because remember that he plays in a back three for his side in Portugal. We don't play a back three here. It's a totally different setup. So it's hard for me to judge how good he is defensively. So, but you know what? I am glad I am not the one making the decision. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah. If any of us ran this club, I'm sorry, but we'd be in the Conference League before long. So let's, we'll leave it on that note, just because we don't want to I don't want to sound smart when I'm actually not. Just want to say, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to hit like and subscribe. If you've been watching on Twitter, which a lot of you have been recently, really, we can't thank you enough for that. You need to go over to YouTube to get the comments in for the future streams, and also that's how you like the video and subscribe and get involved, etc. If you send in questions and comments, we'll star some of them, talk through them like we have today. And yeah, just want to say thank you very much. Thank you, Dan, Paul, and Carter, for coming on. You've all been outstanding. Jamie says, "You'll never walk alone, everyone." What a great panel and chat today. Cheers, Lou, Dan, Carter, Paul. But then he does put except Carter. So just to sort of drop a bit of a bombshell on it. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. once again, and we will see you for the next stream.